Okay, this is the Year 9 and Year 10 lesson on how to find the percentage of an amount without using a calculator. So what I need you to do, please, is to write down the title, which is percentage of amounts, to write down the learning objective, which is to understand how to find the percentage of an amount without using a calculator, and you also need to note down that it's grade 3 work. The cover teacher, what you need to do is just pause the video at various times throughout this, just so that the students can make sure that they copy down the work. I'm sorry if I've already told you this before in other lessons. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is to find 10%. Now, in terms of finding percentage, 10% is what we call the building block. It's how to begin to find percentage of any amounts. So if you've got 70 and you want to find 10% of it, all you need to do is divide by 10. So 70 divided by 10 equals 7. So what we do is we write down that 10% equals 7 meters. And this is just simply the answer for this question. Now, if you make sure that you get that down, if we have a look at the next question, we've got to find 35% of 800. Now, in exactly the same way, we start the question by finding 10%. So, just like before, to find 10%, we divide by 10, so we move everything over to the right by 1. So 10% of 800 will simply be 80. But we don't want 10%, we want to find 35%. But if we know what 10% is, 20% is going to be double that. So that's going to be 160. Add on another 10%, that's going to give us 30%. So that's going to be 240. If we add on another 10%, that's going to take us up to 40%, but we want to get to 35%. But if we know what 10% is, we can halve that to find out what 5% is. So 5% is going to be 40. And then 35%, we add 30% and 5%, so 35% equals 280. And that's the answer there. Sometimes they'll ask something that's a little bit trickier. So if we find 63%, again, we start off in exactly the same way. So finding 10% is going to be 3.8 seconds. So another quick way of doing this would be to find 50%. So 50% is just another way of saying half. So half of 38 seconds is going to be 19 seconds. So if we add these two together, we're going to get 60% as 22.8 seconds. But the trouble is now we're not finding 5%, so we can't do half of this because we've got to find 3%. So what we do is we divide this by 10 again to find 1%. I'm just going to labour that point a little bit because this is the crucial thing. So if 10% is 3.8 seconds, 1% we divide it by 10 again, so we move the decimal point over, and that's going to be 0.38 seconds. So if 1% is 0.38, 2% we add on another 0.38, and that's going to be 0.76 seconds. So 3%, you add on another 0.38, and that's going to be, if we do 0.76 and 0.38, there's no shame in doing extra workings. So 6 plus 8 is 14, 7 plus 3 plus our carried over 1 makes 11, and then that's going to be 1.14. So 1.14 seconds. So that's 3%. So if we add 60% and 3%, we've got 22.8 seconds, and we've got 1.14 seconds. So 49.32. So the answer overall is going to be 23.94 seconds. Now, on top of these questions, what you're going to do is you're going to need to be able to apply them. So in previous tests, what we found is that if you've got a question which says this, 62% of 38 seconds, students can do that because you're being told exactly what to do. It's the whole thinking skills which cause people problems. So what we're going to do in your work that you've got to do, which is these questions here, you'll notice that the first set of questions, it's pretty much straightforward. Just find 10%, 25%, 1%, 2%, 15%. I want you to spend half of the lesson, so maybe whatever lesson it is, work out what half of the lesson is, and then spend the first half doing question 1 and question 2. And then what you'll find is that on the worksheets there's going to be some applied questions. And the applied questions are going to look more like this. I want to make sure that you spend at least half the lesson doing these questions, please. So if we have a look at this one, an adult ticket for the museum costs £15. A child ticket costs 60% of that. So let's work out the cost of a child's ticket. So 10% of 15 is going to be, move everything over by 1, so 1's going to go there, 5's going to go there. That's going to be £1.50. 50% is going to be half of that, so half of 15 is £7.50. So 60% is going to be £7.50 plus £1.50. Add on the £1, £8.50. Add on the 50 is going to be £9. So 60% is £9. And again, it's worth noting all the time what it is that you're looking at. So 60% is the price of a child's ticket. Now we've got Mrs. Jenkins and her 3 children going to the museum. So it's going to be £15 for her ticket. And then we got £9, £9 and £9 for the 3 kids. So we add that together. 5 plus 9 is, so 9 plus 9 plus 9 is 27. Plus 5 is going to be 32. Plus 2, carry the 3. 3 plus 1 is 4, so it's going to be £42. So that's going to be the cost of all 3 of them going. Now Mrs. Jenkins pays with 3 £20 notes. So it's going to be 20 times by 3, so that's going to be £60. So if the cost is £60 and the price is £42, then the change is going to be the difference between 60 and 42. So that's going to be 5 carried over the 1. 10 take away 2 is 8. 5 take away 4 is 1. So the change she gets, which is the question, how much change will she receive? The change is going to be £18. Okay, once you've done all that, can I get you to start off, please, on these questions and do at least half the lesson on these questions. Then make sure that you go back and you spend at least half the lesson doing these more applied questions. Thank you.